In this video, I'd like to discuss a significant update coming to Airbnb in the next few days that will entirely revolutionize how this platform works. Hi, it's Sebastian. Welcome to this new video where we'll explore this in a few minutes. But I'll also talk about managing security deposits and managing air cover. Let's discover this in a moment. Before we start this video, I'd invite you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you haven't done it yet, subscribe now. You'll find a little subscribe button. You'll activate a little bell. And like this, you'll receive 1 to 2 times a week videos where I talk about real estate investment. I also talk sometimes about stock investments, but I mostly talk about entrepreneurship since I'm telling you about 2 businesses I could launch in my city that allowed me to achieve my financial freedom: professional real estate subleasing and apartment concierge services. I've also been talking for some time about the cleaning business, a business I launched with my son Pierre, whom you know from this YouTube channel. Today, these are 3 businesses that allow us to achieve our freedom. If you too wish to launch these activities in your city without capital, without bank credit, but you want quick results in 30 days, then I will invite you to grab right away the free training, 1 on subleasing, 1 on concierge services, and 1 on cleaning. Simply in this description part, you scroll down and you grab these completely free trainings. And it's especially once you've grabbed these trainings, you'll be able to join directly with me during a free webinar that I'm going to lead and where I simply want to answer all your questions. So here the introduction is launched. I'd really want today that we talk about this major update on Airbnb that will happen not very long from now. We don't have an official date, but there have been leaks that were made and we know what Airbnb is working on, and I'd like to talk about it here first on this YouTube channel. I'd like to start by reminding us of the principle of the Airbnb platform, especially on incident management, the management of security deposits, and then we'll start by looking at how Booking operates concerning this platform. So Booking today, well, for me, I say it often, but for the leader, the one who is really leading on short-term rentals, it's clearly Airbnb. Besides, you'll notice when you talk with people who are not at all in the Airbnb business, the first thing they tell you when they reserve an apartment, they say, I reserve an Airbnb. They never say, I reserve a Booking. They say, I reserve an Airbnb. So you see to what extent the brand has become something very strong since it entered the common language. It's a bit like Frigidaire. Frigidaire is a brand and we all say, I'm going to the fridge. Actually, Frigidaire is a brand. Many things like this today that are on the market, and when the brand has somehow managed to introduce its name in the common, everyday language, honestly, it's a jackpot. And clearly, that's what's happening for Airbnb. So Airbnb today is a big leader. It's the one that clearly dictates the market. But it's especially that compared to Booking, they've had a functioning from the start that was completely different concerning the management of disputes, the issue of problems in the lodging. So on Booking, today they've implemented a security deposit internally in their platform. I think you know this since previously it didn't exist. You had to take a security deposit off platform. So you needed a channel manager, you needed a Stripe account or possibly a PayPal account. In short, you needed tools if you wanted to be able to take this famous security deposit from your traveler. Today, Booking has integrated it natively in its platform. And today we can say regularly, they increased the value of this possible security deposit. Previously, it was 250 euros, then it went to 500 euros, and now they are looking to move to 1,000 euros, obviously. So they're gradually going up to actually manage this security deposit story. But be careful, it's not automatic. It's not because you have a problem in the lodging and that you've decided on your own to take a certain amount of money in this security deposit that it's automatic, since it remains subject to Booking's approval. Like Airbnb, they'll ask for documentation, etc. And it's not at all sure that you'll be able to take your security deposit. So I know that many people today take a security deposit off platform, so no problem on that side since it's allowed, obviously. And you can indeed resort to this type of management, obviously. So that's the functioning, let's say, of Booking. But on the opposite, Airbnb has a completely different functioning on this principle of security deposit, since they don't take any. They've never taken security deposits. In fact, at the time, Airbnb, for those who know, at the time, in fact, they put that you could take a deposit, but in fact, it was completely fictitious. It had no value, simply because you could put any amount, 300, 400, 500, 1,000 euros, almost. You put what you wanted in this field. Basically, it was a field that was never used. That is to say that simply when you had a problem in the lodging, you couldn't say to Airbnb, well, since I took a security deposit, etc. It had absolutely nothing to do. Besides, even me, I remember I put sums of 100 or 200 euros And sometimes I went to seek disputes on 400, 500 euros. So you see, it had nothing to do simply because Airbnb made its insurance work. And then from one day to the next, they completely removed that because they realized it was useless. But it's especially that, let's say, and that's the nerve of the war of Airbnb. It's really in its genes. In fact, Airbnb considers that the taking of a security deposit can be a hindrance simply to the taking of a reservation. So for them, the taking of a security deposit doesn't exist. So it doesn't exist at Airbnb. There's not at all this principle. On the other hand, there is the principle of air cover. That is to say that it's simply insurance that costs you up to $1 million. If there's a problem in the lodging, simply you provide your documentation concerning what happened, and Airbnb simply looks if indeed they were right to claim, etc. So, what happened these last times? I'm doing a quick reminder before arriving at the main subject, which will concern you. And you'll see that especially for conciergeries, it's really going to be, let's say, a functionality which is very interesting for us. But I also think of all those who do Airbnb who want to be in completely passive mode, who don't want to do absolutely anything. Well, you'll see it's really going to clearly help us. And I want to discover this in a few minutes. So Airbnb have put in place the air cover. And what happened was that they said that now it would be much simpler and that the reimbursement would be much quicker, etc. So it's true in effect, since if it's, for example, small refund requests, generally 100 euros, well, Airbnb automatically, in fact, we just see the documentation and the refund is triggered. We're going to say in the hours that follow, so that I was able to verify it several times, obviously, so there's no subject. As soon as then it starts to be a slightly more important dispute, they operate with insurances, so obviously who will ask for the documentation to be able to check if what you ask is legitimate or not. And then they always try in the first place to recover the sum from the traveler, since at the start, when you make the request, the traveler is notified and he has 72 hours to respond. If they don't respond also, they simply decline the payment request that you've made. Airbnb takes over. That is to say that suddenly it escalates, as they call so, at the Airbnb level, and it's them who will decide according to the documentation. So obviously there are quite a few things that come into play in there. Besides, Airbnb told us that now they left us 2 weeks to trigger our air cover. That is to say, to declare our claim. Why do they do that? Because they know very well that behind you have to look for the photos, you have to collect them, you had to prepare your claim, and so that can take a little bit of time. So be careful. Like Airbnb, they don't tell you this. It's the arrival of the next traveler. Because imagine you trigger your air while your traveler has already left and that there's already been a new reservation. The more you're going to wait, the more Airbnb is going to be a little bit more annoying and is going to ask you for quite a lot of information. So that's why I always say it's important to still trigger its air cover, let's say, just after the departure of the travelers. Normally, if you're well organized, your cleaning staff has already made the photos. So I'm going to tell you within 24 hours, normally you're able to do this operation and you're able to launch the claims. And I'm really going to invite you to do it quickly, because the more you wait, the more Airbnb lets you enough time to do it. Yeah, but if you've seen in the meantime other travelers, I think they also say internally, well, wait, why does he wait so much time while he tells me that there's a problem on the sofa, while in the end he receives other travelers, and that in the end, well, it poses a problem apparently to nobody else. You see what I mean? So be super careful. That's why do it as soon as possible to trigger this famous air cover. And again, normally if you're well organized, if you have apps to do things, or if, for example, your cleaning person goes through WhatsApp, normally you're already going to receive the information. It's still quite easy to create a claim folder and to go straight to Airbnb. So it's true that the operation is a little bit complex and finally a little bit long. It requires quite a few manipulations. And that's where we come precisely to the subject of this video. The problem that we had on Airbnb is that only the host could make this claim request. That is to say, to trigger the air cover. So that means, for example, that if you had a concierge service and normally you're in co-host, you have your owners who have their listing and you're connected as co-host. Well, now your possibility and the owner possibilities to give access to quite a lot of information, and in particular the management of reservations, the management a little bit of the financial part. In fact, you have access to a lot of information, but you can also now configure so that your co-host doesn't have access to certain types of information. What happened was that when you have a claim, unfortunately, you can't do it from your co-host account. It's not possible. And the real problem that it has in relation to that, especially if you're a manager, for example, if you're the owner, for example, that means that it's up to you to do it. And that's really annoying. Or else it means that you give, therefore, your information to the concierge service. That is to say that I give your login and your password. What we also know is that when, for example, someone connects on the account, there's the principle of the SMS code. So that means that it's going to receive an SMS, the double authentication. So you have to give the code to the concierge, and it's very annoying, very tedious. And honestly, both the owner as the concierge, it's very annoying today to make air cover declarations because precisely, well, it's not practical at all. And if you're the owner, it means that you're not in full delegation, because that means that you're forced to manage all that. And I also think sometimes that the concierge as the owner wouldn't particularly want to be aware of all that. That is to say that the concierge, they would want to be able to make their own claims, and the procreator would want to be able to be quiet, to chill, without having to hear that there was a problem in this lodging. When you're the owner, if you delegate, for example, your apartments, and that it was a concierge service, you're going to be in cool mode. You don't want to hear that your lodging, it's a problem. You know that there will be problems. Besides, as a concierge service, you have to tell them that there will be problems. It's part of the business. Again, I tell you, you're selling a product. So a product can be defective. Maybe it can break down. Well, there's all its lot of problems. It was the same thing for Airbnb. So the owner is aware of that, but he doesn't necessarily need to enter the operational in that part. Today, unfortunately, we don't have the choice. We're forced to connect with the owner's identifiers and therefore enter the famous password, the SMS code. So you're going to tell me I put my phone number, etc. Yes. But what we also know, it's that the problem of phone numbers, it's that in fact you can assign only one phone number to a single Airbnb account. So all that is complicated because let's say it's not simple. It makes the operation quite complex. And that means that you introduce the owner in the management, therefore, of the dispute. And simply what happened finally there on what Airbnb is working on, since they're talking about it a little bit and it went a bit for the forgotten, but it went a bit off. We didn't hear much about this information. On the other hand, what we heard about these last days, if you follow a bit the news, it's that they've banned cameras in the apartment. That is to say that if, for example, you had a video surveillance system or other, it's over, it's forbidden, no more camera in your lodging. So that's prohibitive, you get kicked out of the platform. That's the news on which they communicated these last days. But on the other hand, something they communicate much less, because I think it's not yet out to have done the test again this morning, it didn't work. But it's going to come in the next days, I'm certain. It's an update that will arrive. It's simply who gives. Finally, I've teased quite a lot. And you'll notice you'll leave me, by the way, the thumb towards the water. If, well, this little teasing end here has not more. No, but we'll come back a little more seriously. In fact, here, they are working on the fact that the co-host will be able to trigger the air cover. He will be able to trigger the claims. So today, the COS could still somehow, because I tested it, he could request extra payments. That is to say that if, for example, you sold a service, the Joy, we sold it this weekend, and well, someone who finally stayed all afternoon, so on Sunday, so we simply sold him half a unit so he could extend his stay. So there we were able to do it as COS. We were able to indeed request this money directly from the tenant. On the other hand, the request, if you have a dispute in the lodging, there you have a big message that tells you that it's not possible. And well, that it's going to change. So Airbnb is working on this. They're going to communicate, I think, very soon. Very clearly, it's going to happen. The host will be able to really take over completely there on this, and it allows precisely the host to do the air cover and to completely take charge of this initiative of simply declaring the dispute. On the other hand, I think that since they're working on this, their goal is that it's easier and easier. Who says easier, faster? Says that, in my opinion, the delay to trigger a claim will come back to what we knew before. That's to say, before, you had to trigger your claim request before the arrival of the next traveler. So, imagine you had a departure at 12 o'clock and that you to a debate. At an arrival at 4 p.m., you had 4 hours to make your claim. So be careful, because they give us something on one side that's rather cool. But I think that as a result, they're going to shorten this delay, and there it means that you have to be super reactive. So it means that your manager, if for example your owners, you go through the pretty concierge, that is to say that the pretty concierge must be hyper reactive precisely on this type of action, because otherwise it's dead what? So tools that are given in a much easier way to use. But on the other hand, it also means that you're also hyper reactive in the implementation and well of this claim. So here's a bit this big news that's going to come. I find that it's a big plus, especially for conciergeries, because there it allows to have total control. It also allows, well, when you've sold your services in concierge, to say, well, there you're in completely automatic mode where there you have nothing to do. We take care of everything from the claims. Everything is organized, prepared, etc. I think it's a real plus, and that is something we've been waiting for a very long time. Airbnb has made a lot of progress in this co-host part. We saw it. There's still some time, since there's possibility today to split, for example, to take a percentage on the reservations with the cleaning fees or not the cleaning fees. It was still rather well done, I find, today, and it gives a lot of flexibility to the concierge to work precisely with an owner and avoid in particular, for example, to wait the end of the month to send the invoices, wait to be paid. There you can be paid almost immediately directly by the platform. So that was a big plus. I find that arrived, there's about 6 months, and there, if now they leave us the possibility to trigger the claims, there, very sincerely, we have all the tools to really manage perfectly the listings of our owners. Here's what I wanted to say in this video. This video then comes to an end. I hope that it pleased you, obviously. Do not hesitate, of course, to ask your questions if you have any. And then I invite you simply to let this video roll. You're going to chain on a next video with me. As you know, wanting to change life, it's good, but doing it, it's even better. I wish you an excellent day, and I say to you, see you soon in the next video.